For those who might be tuning in late to Channel 5, you have seen the announcement on your screen that we are having a hearing here by the Cable Franchise Review Committee, and this is one of the reviews that is prescribed in the franchise for every 3 years. So we are hearing testimony this evening from members of the public, and there are many people here yet who wish to express themselves. Now, during the earlier part of the session, we had a few people who ran over the 5-minute time limit, and I think in the interests of getting everyone's point across this evening, we're going to enforce the 5-minute rule. So when you hear the bell, please wind it up. If you hear the second bell, you're through. So we want to move things along now for the rest of the evening so we can hear all the viewpoints concerning your concerns about the operation of the franchise. I believe that we have a person on this side who should start off, and we have asked all members to sign in and state whether they are representing themselves or some group or organization.
Thank you.
Cold or anything?
We are Walter and Zelma Meyer, and I'm recovering from sinus surgery, which reminds me of the man that got his nose broken in 3 places. So then he learned to stay out of those places. And I imagine this is a pretty good place for me to get my nose broken, because we believe that our city government should rid itself of all involvement in public access cablevision. Moral degeneration has made it inappropriate to trust the public with programming such a channel. Our mayor, city council, and cable franchise review committee have demonstrated their unwillingness to regulate it, and the Lincoln Cablevision Company has been prohibited from doing so. Consequently, we have an anything goes arrangement for which we Cablevision subscribers are forced to pay regardless of how offensive the material may be to us. History demonstrates that when a government gets involved in promoting the arts, Satan's advocates line up and take advantage of the benefits. And the government finds itself subsidizing the works of haters, Christ bashers, and the like. Also, national constitutions get twisted so that they can be used for protecting such conduct. In the case at hand, our city government has franchised the Lincoln Cablevision Company for serving Lincoln viewers, providing the company furnish a free channel for public use. This arrangement is an insidious way of endowing the arts without using public funds. We Cablevision subscribers are forced to pay the cost without a voice in what is shown. If there needs an explanation for that, I don't believe the Cablevision Company is in the business of manufacturing money, they have to get it from somebody, and the viewers or the subscribers is where they get their money. And if the Cablevision company voices our sentiments by refusing to air an evil show on the channel, the city government can put the company out of business by terminating the franchise, which our city government has already once threatened to do. What endowing the arts by furnishing public access television can lead to was told in the March 12, 1992 Lincoln Journal article entitled Film on Sex Life of Christ to premiere in Copenhagen. And the article told how the Danish High Court had ruled that the state had to provide $530,000 to a filmmaker to produce a show portraying Jesus Christ in love with a female terrorist and featuring sex scenes involving Roman Catholic nuns and archbishops. Now is the time for the city government to rid itself of all involvement of public access television, cablevision. And if a need is there for public channel, let promoters solicit funds for financing it, and censorship will take care of itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Kevin Gregorius, and I'm one of Satan's advocates. I'm going to take over the channel. As of late, there's been, as no doubt we're here, this tremendous uproar and upsurge over the public access channel because there's all this, so much controversial material on. And people are angry because they don't want this alleged material broadcast into their homes. And of course, the mayor's doing his part as well, becoming the public crusader against indecency. And I, for one, don't see what everyone's so mad about. I never got the chance to see Race and Reason or The Milk Show because they weren't on for very long. In fact, the only reason I was aware of the program's existence was all the negative publicity they were getting. I, for one, don't watch something I don't like. I don't watch the New Candid Camera. I don't watch Gallagher reruns on Channel 19. And for the most part, people don't watch what they don't like. But when a certain program gets a lot of negative publicity, everyone wants to see what the buzz is about, so they watch it. And then they become offended and allow our public officials to carry out their petty little programs to satisfy themselves. And the mayor definitely realizes this. There's a lot of stuff on TV that I find offensive. MTV's Spring Break, those little spider documentaries on the Discovery Channel, a lot of stuff. But we don't see the mayor crusading against MTV. Well, why? Because the mayor has no power over it. Nobody has any power over what goes on other, like broadcasters, other people have mentioned, on broadcast network. Just as he or nobody else should have the say as to what goes on with the public access channel except for the producers themselves gathered here. In fact, as far as that goes, I find much more material on MTV or, say, the Arts and Entertainment Network a lot more offensive than anything I've ever seen on Channel 14. So why is there this big public cry to do away with the access channel? Well, I tried to figure out who would be hurt by a decision to change it or to take it away. And of course, if it was banned, no one would benefit and everyone would get hurt. So what about this community access the mayor's proposing? Who would be hurt? Would Ron's program allowed to be on? Doubtful. Would the World Liberation Brain Sewage be allowed on? It's doubtful. Would all the little quote-unquote kiddie shows be allowed? And that's even more doubtful. In fact, one of the very reasons to keep the channel open is to allow teenagers like Justin and I and Lisa over there, and I don't know, there's a lot of them, to be on the channel. I mean, changing the channel gives the propensity for taking our shows off the air, denying children the very right to speech, in fact, denying the same children that you guys are trying to protect through censorship. It's not a wise idea. And I think the decision to change the channel in any way would hurt many more people than it could benefit. So basically, don't take the channel away from us or change it in any way. I believe in the freedom of speech, and I think it's a good thing. And I quote Voltaire, "I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend to your death your right to say it." And I feel that sums up what I have to say rather well. If you don't like a program, don't watch it. If you don't like a book, don't read it. And if you don't like a candidate, don't vote for him. But going around censoring this and banning that, you aren't protecting anyone, and I hope that the mayor realizes this. In closing, then, just be very careful about what y'all decide here tonight, and don't start restricting my rights, because I'll probably get angry. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Wendy Duncan. I'm a cable subscriber. I'm a parent. I'm a resident of this public that you represent. And I guess the points that I'd like to make are that, first of all, I think that it should remain unchanged and uncensored. I have a 14-year-old. In recent watching, I don't know, I probably watched about 8 or 9 hours in the last few days of Channel 14, catching the controversial material. I didn't find anything I wouldn't allow him to watch. In fact, I think as a parent, you should probably be encouraged to watch the more controversial issues with your children as opposed to letting them find this information and this attitude that exists in the public from strangers and other influences you also have no control over. Part of the education of your children should be an awareness of what is existent in his community. He's going to become a part of it. And I've never found ignorance to be something I could support in any sector. My son likes some of the questionably comedic talents that he has seen on television. I have no problem with that. What I do have a problem with is handing over control of a public access channel to a handful. You might as well elect a CEO, sell advertising, slap 3 alphabetic initials on it, and go for your 6th station that you brought up in your first issue. If you're going to leave it as a public access channel unchanged, then you will represent the views of the public. I do find an appalling lack of cultural diversity on the channel. I think if you were going to make any recommendation, expand it to 24 hours. I have a problem with only really one thing on your number 5. If you change it to 11 p.m. before you can put on our indecent shows, some of us are going to be rather non-functional the next day at work if we have to stay up late to see what's going on with Ron Kurtenbach and the people on Zed Talk and some of the other programming that you seem to find indecent or objectionable, as it were. Your definition, not mine. I guess, in closing, I would just like to say that if you feel that you must censor, please exercise censorship in your home and not mine. Thank you.
My name's Anton Meyers. I speak on behalf of myself and of Matt Malone of the show Smart Axes. I produce a music video show called The Asylum. The reason I produce it is because the videos that I play represent a worldview that radio does not want to deal with, that MTV can't stand, namely Christian rock music, because it represents views antithetical to a lot of what's going into modern rock and roll now. I offer this as an alternative, not to say that certain records should be banned, but give what I have a chance. I know I don't have a large audience yet. I've only been on for a few months, but I'm building an audience, and there are people in town who admire what I do and have told me so. And that is why I've come to speak tonight. I've come to speak on behalf of the proposal for changing the channel to a true community access channel with a non-profit corporation being established only to handle the day-to-day operations of the channel, not necessarily the content. And these are the reasons why I'm giving this support. The most obvious of these has been talked about many times tonight, namely the obscenity and indecency statutes already in effect, While I personally do not consider pornographic anti-Christian bigotry to have any artistic merit, apparently the courts of this land and some parts of the Lincoln cable audience do. And therefore, they have the right to be on the channel. I'm not disputing anybody's right to be or not be on the channel right now. But in light of the fact that there are certain shows that their parents would not like their children to see or would like to at least discuss with them so they don't take this information in and not question it, I would ask that what is already in effect be enforced or expand, or moving the time of indecent programming to 11 p.m. But there are more concerns than this I haven't really heard a lot about tonight, and this is mainly what I'm here for. One of these is a scheduling process is currently in effect at the channel. Right now, I really should say it's more of a lack of, because the only policy that is in effect is first come, first served, non-discriminatory basis. Well, even as we speak, my channel, program, I should say, has been discriminated against in of the fact of what its nature is, music videos that are not produced here in Lincoln. The only rules that are in effect right now of some of them state that programming that is not 50% locally produced, as in 50% of what's on the screen is produced here in Lincoln, is considered an import series and therefore can be knocked out of its time space. I have no rights in knocking other people out of the time slots to get a decent slot, and because of this, I am losing my time slot for a 5-week period, which could do bad things from trying to get my message out. And never mind the fact, though, that I put in over 3 hours of editing and post-production per show, and never mind the fact that I have to spend a lot of my own money to get more videos for the show, to go out to concerts, to shoot them. I'm not doing this on behalf of any church or anybody else. I'm doing it out of my own pocket. So I'm still considered a second-class show with very little say in my own destiny on the channel. That is unfair to myself or to any other import series sponsor or producer of a show involving non-local material, and I believe it needs to change. On the same subject, scheduling should be better controlled to limit the number of shows that are done by an individual or groups. Before I get further into this, I'd like to say I'm not saying that any certain person should not have the right to be on the channel, but certain people have, as far as I'm concerned, too much time on this channel and not allow others to be on this channel. Right now, Ron Kurtenbach and Zero Street are producing up to 15 hours a week of programming on the channel. And because of this, 15 or more, anyway, because of that, they've even stated on their programs that they would produce more if they could. They're able to do this because of the, once again, first come, first served, non-discriminatory basis. But I've always believed that it is not as much the case as, quote unquote, I was here first, is as important as sharing with others who do not have the resources that you do. And because of this, this non-discriminatory basis is a noble cause, but I feel already my show has been discriminated against, and others are being discriminated against by not having the chance to place their show in a time slot that that people they would like to reach out to would be able to see it. And then there were only a few people involved in the channel. The first come, first serve was fine, and people could choose any time they wanted. Now the channel is nearly full, and it is very hard to get any slot at all, and it is even harder for people who have limited time and resources to make shows to be so hugely overshadowed by this group's ability to dominate the channel and to give the city the impression that only Ron, Zero Street, and Donnie Smith are all there is to Channel 14. That's not the case. There are many of us who are trying to represent small groups which may be considered uncomfortable. Their opinions may be considered uncomfortable by the rest of the city, but I would like to see us have our chance to say our piece. When it comes to this program board, I am worried about balance, as too many people have expressed, and I think the content part of it should be left alone. And as myself, I volunteer for that board if given the chance. I would also say, on behalf of getting the schedule of the show out, I've been trying to work on that and welcome input from other cable programmers and anybody else helping on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before I begin to say what I wanted to say, I'd like to mention that as I was reminded what inspired me to come here tonight, I read a letter by Mr. Meyers in the Journal Star, and I want to remind him that something he pointed out.
I'm sorry, but I don't believe you identified yourself.
I'm sorry.
by
My
name.
name's
You
Darin.
did sign
Joseph
in, but would
Grace.
you tell us who you are, please?
And I was going to get to that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I wanted to state that we should keep in mind that we need to separate or keep the separation between religion and government when we're thinking about censorship and what a television station should be for us. Now, my name is Darin Joseph Brace, as I said, and I've lived in Lincoln for 3 years now, and I've been a Cablevision subscriber for nearly 2. And all the places that I've been in 3 states for a number long or short periods of time sometimes, and I've never seen anything quite like the cable access channel that you have here, with the exception of some local channels that I've seen that give voluntary time for editorial comment. And I don't think that we should take this kind of forum that we have for granted and throw it away the way we are considering right now. Currently, I'm associated with one show on the public access channel, Into the Light, which is on Fridays at 6:30. Now, I've appeared on this show once, and I've been involved in its decision-making process from the beginning. I'm also working on the sidelines for another program. We plan to air that in the near future. Aside from these interests that I come here with, I come speaking for myself and my family. I just wanted to say that I oppose the scrambling idea because, as has been mentioned before, that would limit some people from being able to get it because of the difficulty that might be involved in trying to go through the situation to try to get something they're not possibly sure they really want, though they may want it. But I do feel that the option that is listed here of improving the listings or the availability of listing what's going to be on the TV show, including the description of the nature of the program, is a fair idea. I also think that we should strongly consider educating the public or the subscribers on how to use the public access channel, and I personally very strongly feel that we should encourage free speech. I publish a newsletter with my own money. I lose $30 to $40 a month to publish this newsletter. I do allow advertising. The advertising is free for stores or other businesses that would cater to my audience. Because I believe that a right is not a right unless we exercise that right. Like anything else that is a muscle we have, if you don't use it, you lose it. I also want to say that whatever decision is made on this committee or by whatever process of decision you use, producer identification is a very good idea, but keep in mind that we responsible producers do exist, and that it shouldn't be necessary to make freedom a dangerous endeavor to enjoy. Now, I have a message from another friend of mine that I would like to end what I had to say with, and he said that our founding fathers were named Ben Franklin and Tom Jefferson, not Cotton Mather or King George. If they were, the people who talk about founding fathers would have no problem with free speech because there would have been no Bill of Rights to begin with, no America, and really no free speech. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
My name is John Taylor. I'm here speaking for myself and speaking as an openly gay individual. I want to talk a little bit about something that you haven't touched on in much of the public comment tonight, and that's history. The Bill of Rights does protect freedom of speech, and the political reality of that is that our media, the print media, television, and radios, for the most part, are commercial endeavors. The Bill of Rights protects that media in their decision of what they wish to air or print or show. And we need to recognize that as political reality. They're there to sell newspapers. They're there to sell advertising. They're there to get the drive time listeners. Unfortunately, for those of us who are in minority groups, be it a recognized racial group or an unrecognized sexual group, we do not frequently have access to that media. In this city, when Paul Cameron, 10 years ago, was spewing his misinformation about the gay, lesbian, and bisexual community in this town, we did not have access to the Journal Star. We did not have access to many of the TV stations or radios. We only had access through Channel 14, that public access. And to this day, Channel 14 is the access that we have to rely on. There's only one non-commercial FM station in this town that we can go to also do programming, and that's KZUM. In looking at the options that you put before us tonight, what keeps jumping out at me is the ability of the cable system to expand. Expand in money for programming, expand in money for equipment, expand in channels, expand. We need to encourage that expansion at all levels, including at the program level. We shouldn't be looking at limiting access on public channel. We should be expanding it. And finally, as I look at the options on the public access portion, I see very little difference between your option number 2, which is to do nothing, and your option number 5. Number 5 is what we should have been doing for the last 10 years. We should have been informing through our public access system of the rights of people and what they can do. I do take exception to number D in 5 and number E. The require producers to bear some of the cost of publishing listings in newspapers or other cable guides reminds me of the poll tax that was abolished in this country 30 years ago. We no longer allow people to vote who can pay that poll tax. We now allow everybody to vote. And finally, changing from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the evening is really not an issue, because parents who have concern about what their children are watching are home at 10 o'clock, probably, with their children watching. Thank you.
My name is David Hunter, and I'm here to represent my pocketbook. I totally support the adding of the multicultural channel. I totally support the maintaining of Channel 14 in an uncensored manner. I guess it's ironic that I stand here in this room. I remember when I was chair of the LIBA School Committee, one of our projects was to put the Lincoln School Board, heaven forbid, on cable TV. And 3 years later, it finally happened. And one of the advantages in Channel 14, it does give a political opportunity for those to rebut some of the outrageous comments that are made in this room periodically. So I think it does have its advantage in a lot of ways. But the one item that involves my pocketbook and your pocketbook is this basically boils down, outside of the censorship issue, of raw dollars and cents and bucks. I think it's very ironic that the cable TV management team elected to raise this issue in the beginning, knowing full well that if there was enough political uproar over public access, it could conceivably, possibly be dumped. And if it was dumped, the profitability of the cable TV franchise would increase, because your franchise agreement requires it to be maintained. And I can assure you the subscriber rates would not be reduced at the time it was dumped. I'm offended at a lot of things that affect the monetary operation of cable TV. I'm offended at the time when they installed cable to some older buildings which we maintained and drilled holes through the walls to stick the cable in from the outside without proper installation. I'm offended at the fact that they have not invested substantial dollars and cents of training and expertise in the installation of these facilities. I'm offended at the fact that this is the cable TV franchise that subcontracted with two firms to upgrade, as per the franchise agreement, two firms that employed both illegal and legal alien labor in this community. The response that cable TV laid out on the table was, well, we've tried to hire people, but no one came forward, so we had no choice. Of course, that's called underemployment. Therefore, that affects the profitability. I'm offended at the fact of this excess charge that goes on for extra outlets. Now, I understand the ability to regulate this is non-existent, but I also understand political reality. And that reality is this is a windfall profit that is very difficult to regulate. The telephone company did away with this many years ago of charging for extra outlets. It's hard to police, it's selective in its enforcement, and it's a very high profit getter. No question about it, and it should be eliminated. There should be one option on that issue, and that is eliminated. This community is growing in leaps and bounds. This community is adding cable TV subscribers daily in the new subdivisions. I'm very aware of that. And cable TV is very aware of that. To add these people is very economical after you've created your main base. So therefore, watch the figures. Make a political statement. Make strong recommendation to eliminate these extra charges and put the buck where it stops and pay attention to what's really going on. A lot of this, outside of the censorship issues and the other issues that have been brought up here, is dollars and cents to cable TV. Look back at your history at Cox Cable in Omaha. I know that. You should know that, the amount of profitability that was made on that. Any company that would employ the kind of labor and the kind of subcontractor that this cable TV franchise employed in this community and use the excuse they have used, I guarantee you, is a very highly profit-motivated operation, which is not negative until it becomes a monopoly. And I think that this cable TV franchise has not acted politically responsible in this community, especially in the areas which I'm referring to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matthew Govig, and first, I'm representing myself. And first of all, I want to say that I'm really impressed with a lot of what everyone has said tonight, or almost everyone has said. I think it's great, and it saves me from saying a lot of things. So I guess first the thing I want to say is that everyone in this room will be offended by something different. And at the same time, everyone in this room will appreciate a different form of expression. And because of that, no one person or group can decide for another group or of people what is good and what is bad and what is right and what is wrong. Because there are no good or bad. There is no right and wrong. There are only differences. And differences, in my opinion, are what make the whole world great. In that case, I believe that cable channel 14 should be left the same because it allows people to have a forum to express themselves and show their differences and allow other people to appreciate those differences. When I first came to Lincoln 5 years ago, I had never seen public access. They didn't have it where I came from. And I was so impressed that here is a city where people who have something to say can say it and be heard. And not only that, but the city and the cable company here will help them do it in any way they can. That was great. I went home and told my mom. I was like, that's how impressed I was. They didn't have that where I came from. So I just want to say that I think it's a great thing. We're really lucky to have it here, and we need to keep it. And if we lose it, it'll be sad. And I think, in my opinion, it'll be a crime if we lose it. I also want to say that I applaud the Cable Advisory Board and the City of Lincoln for considering the multicultural programming, finally. And I think it's a great idea, and I want to remind you to consider all cultures and all minority groups, and that includes the gay, lesbian, and bisexual community, Lincoln's largest minority group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is George Ochola. I'm going to be brief. I'm going to say what I have to say and get out of here. I've always had grave doubts about having a completely open access channel, but I look back throughout my history and I've seen what's happened when you take away minorities and people who don't have much say. You take away their rights not to say what they want to say. It hurts the whole system. And I look at all the options that we've been given, and I see there's two very sensible ones. They're in number 5. I agree that we should change things that most people would consider indecent and obscene to be aired at 11 o'clock. There's no doubt about that in my mind. I mean, people talk about mothers can come and switch, what they don't want their children to see. But what most people fail to recognize is most mothers do work. Not everybody has the economic ability to be home at 10 o'clock at night to be with their children. That's just not possible for everybody. It might be possible for a lot of people in this room, but I know it was never possible for my mother. People talk about scrambling. That's not an option, I don't think. I feel that those indecent shows should be on after 11 o'clock. And the second thing is, I feel that people who produce these shows should take full responsibility for what they produce. If you produce something, be proud of it. Because if you're not proud of it and you're not willing to take responsibility for it, don't show it to me. That's just the bottom line for me. If you're not proud of it and you don't want to take responsibility for what you've done, don't show it to me, or don't even try to show it in something that I am paying for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Chuck Foley Jr., and I represent my public access television program, Friday Night Live, and its cast. And I am very upset that the city is so obsessed with public access that they would waste so much money to put up well, we need a committee, so I can't really say that, but maybe we do need a censor board. Have you thought about that? A censor board. I mean, I realize censorship to an extent is un-American, but NBC, what would NBC look like without a censor board? Okay, I mean, think about that. And that is something that, I mean, I do it personally. On my show, I will not let a cuss word or an obscene gesture go over public access television's signal, because I respect that we have this ability to do this television, and I don't want to abuse it. And that's basically my bottom line about that. And the whole deal is just very disappointing. I'm also very disappointed in the Lincoln media, which basically amounts to 10/11, for the fact that they have never given us any positive recognition for anything that we've done. I don't appreciate that at all. All we see is stuff about the Piss Show or the Milk Show or any of these shows. I mean, they need to also recognize that public access has its good side as well. We are not totally negative, and I know myself that I do a show and I try to do it the best I can. I'm doing it as a learning experience, and that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Todd Bowman, and I want to start by just making a couple comments about myself. Number one, I am a born-again Christian, and the only reason I say that is because I feel like we may get these stereotypes that the only people who support public broadcasting the way it is now are maybe the very liberal, very radical type people, and the only people who support or are against public access are the more older, more conservative, more religious type person. Second thing I'd like to say is that I work with children. I work with junior high kids, and the only reason I say that is because I care very strongly about the messages that they receive every day over television, through the media, through radio, etc. I care about that because it does shape their values. The third thing I'd like to say is that I don't produce a show. I'm not involved with any show, and it seems like a lot of the people who've spoken here supporting it, produce or involved with the show. I have no self-interest in that. I don't really get into that a whole lot. I'm just a college student who wants to be a teacher and work with kids, that's all. And that's who I'm representing myself in those views. I have about 3 points I'd like to make. The first one, I think it was really embarrassing the way the city handled this whole issue. We keep referring to this thing as a huge controversy, but I feel like the only reason it's a controversy is because one person turned it into a controversy. The way it should have been handled, the shows should have been shown the way they were, and if they were really that bad and the public was really offended by them, they should have responded by themselves. They shouldn't have needed to be prompted and shown all these commercials and manipulated by the media. If they were that bad, people would have responded anyway. And the problem I had, like the last person talked about, is by doing it this way, we neglect the fact that most of the programming on public access is excellent. I'd say 95% of it is very profitable stuff. And you maybe have 1 or 2 or 3 shows that might be a little offensive, but you don't hear about the positive things. Second thing I'd like to say is that I just really think it's important that the minority needs to have a voice. And that's the whole purpose of public access, to give the people who don't get a chance to speak a voice. And of course, when you give minorities a voice, oftentimes those things that they say are going to be controversial because they're in the minority. But in my mind, that's good and that's okay because it makes the majority or the dominant group in society think about what they believe. I think it's really dangerous to have a bunch of people believing what they believe and a whole community believing what they believe, and they don't know why. They just are very emotional about it, and they don't have to think about it. I think it makes them think about it. And I also just want to say that much of the programming that I watch, I'd say at least half of the shows that I watch are on public access, Channel 14. And maybe even more than that. The main reason is because I find that everything on regular television, public or cable, is all the same thing. Whether it be sitcoms, whether it be the news, it's all the same. You just see the same stuff over and over, and it gets really old. I like to watch public access because it's different. I hear different views. I don't really agree with a lot of it, but the thing is, it makes me think, and I find it interesting, and it's good that we have other voices out there. And I think it benefits the whole community, and I think it's beneficial. The only thing I'd like to say is that if you're going to make any changes at all, I would agree with proposal number 5, maybe. Get people and encourage people to get involved in this, encourage people to make shows, and maybe put the really offensive ones on just a little bit later, because I am concerned about the kids, and I do think they should, if it is indecent, it should be on a little later. That makes it easier for parents to monitor. My final comment would just be, I'd just like to make is that I'm really shocked that there hasn't been a program like Black Entertainment Television shown on cable yet. I mean, that's just amazing to me. We have a very low minority population, even at the university, where we're supposed to be open and assimilating, but we're not. And a lot of it is because they don't have any support here. They come, you'll see a lot of minorities on campus the first day, and by the end of the semester, a lot of them have gone. There's no support for them. They don't have anything here. Give them television, give them something, anything, you know, and that's just my thoughts on that and the whole issue. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Denise Meyer, and I'm with the Nebraska Leadership Conference, and we have a program on the Access Channel. And I would say that we are in favor of continuing to keep the Access Channel open. We wouldn't like to see that scrambled. We feel it necessary, especially in this community, with the media coverage in this state, we feel it very necessary to have an open forum for a free exchange of ideas and opinions. And it's very necessary to have the public access channel available to those who have views that maybe aren't politically correct or given access to in the regular media because of various blacklists or whatever the problem would be. But we feel it'd be very important to keep the public access channel open. And that's the most important issue, we feel. The secondary issue has to do with my personal opinion. And it may not be real popular, but since I'm here, I think I'll give it. I feel there is a distinction to be made between someone's freedom to exchange ideas and opinions and beliefs, and between someone's freedom to use profanity or show sexually explicit material or behaviors. I think there is a distinction there. I think most rational people see there is a distinction there. I don't think this should be a channel where anything goes at any time, at any place. I certainly don't think this channel should be scrambled and become perhaps a free porn channel. I think that people will not go and get a box to view the other channels on there. I guess I'm a little nonplussed. I thought there would be more people that would hold my point of view, and perhaps more people who hold my point of view will write in. I do think the mayor and perhaps the council has kind of used this as a political football in order to avoid a lawsuit that could occur if they would enforce the obscenity and indecency laws that are written right here. And they are, according to the United States Supreme Court, obscene materials are without First Amendment protection. The court said that obscene materials are those in which the dominant theme of the work, taken as a whole, appeals to a prurient interest in sex, according to the average person applying contemporary community standards. There is a provision in that law for this community to adopt some community standards to apply to obscenity laws. I have a video that I could run on the Access Channel that shows a metropolitan gay parade in San Francisco, and it's very explicit. And it shows men dancing nude down the middle of the street, and it shows men engaging in sexual activity naked on a float. It fights and brings forth a very conservative point of view, but the film itself is very explicit. I could show that on Access Channel. It's not just liberal points of view that could, in fact, abuse this privilege we have of freedom of speech. A conservative point of view could, in fact, abuse that privilege. I choose not to show that film. I find it very offensive, and I wouldn't want to put that off on someone else. But I'm saying I could. And I think that people with more liberal points of view need to realize that, you know, we could use that activity as well. The additional wording here, it says, which depict or describe sexual conduct in a patently offensive way as defined by state law, and which, taken as a whole, lack serious literary, artistic, scientific, or political value. I think there are some shows that I have seen on Access Channel that would fit in the obscenity category, even though everyone's just talking about indecency. I really, truly think, according to my standards, which seem to be average to me, there's been some obscene language, there's been some obscene behavior. At the very least, put these on after 11. But I really feel that this community needs to have the backbone to enforce some community standards. And they need to do it on the Access Channel as well as in other areas of the community. Without that, you have the ideas that have been represented here tonight that anything goes, anywhere, anytime. And I think that's lunacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the committee. I'm glad you've had the patience to sit through all of this. My name is Jim Tetherow. I'm here to represent myself. I certainly don't represent the Acme Judging Company. I think Mr. Bates holds that position. I realize that my opinion represents that of 1/200,000th of the area's population, more or less. Apparently, there are some people here who believe that their opinion should represent 200,000 of these 200,000 opinions. I sat down Sunday night and watched cable channel 14. Afterwards, I pondered the acute distinction between the Song of Mary and watching the Fish Show. As I pondered these two shows, I got offended. I got disgusted. Things are happening on public access channel that really disturb me. Someone is talking about censorship. Censorship is the idea that one person should be given the control over all the information that all other persons receive. If you believe that, there's some wonderful job openings for you. Contact Saddam Hussein, Baghdad, Iraq, or contact Muammar Gaddafi in Tripoli, Libya. I'm sorry, Mr. Hitler's office is temporarily closed for renovations. He may be back. I don't believe censorship works. It's just not consistent. If you took a day to research, you could come up with a long list of books, movies, statues, paintings, dances that at one time or another have been banned, censored. Some words have been censored. I don't really care if your name is Joseph Stalin or Jesse Helms. I don't want you to decide for me what I can hear. George Carlin was arrested for uttering on stage the 7 words that you can't say on television. Well, we're here tonight discussing his second word. George Carlin was arrested. Sam Kinison appears at the Lead Center. How times change. I don't really care if you call yourself the CIA or the Citizens for Decency. If I let you decide what I can read, then I am, by corollary, letting you decide what I can't read. And this soon leads to you deciding what I must read. This borders on mind control. My mind is the last place that I can go to be alone, and I'm not going to let you have it. It's been said that the mind is like a parachute. If you keep it closed, it's not worth very much. Censorship is an attempt to keep my parachute closed, and I resent it. Some suggested that I should allow Mr. Bates to decide what I can't see on public access TV. Well, when I was a teenager, and when several people in this room are teenagers, the best network brains decided for me that I could not see Elvis Presley from the waist down. I was outraged. You were outraged. Who did that guy think he was anyway? I'm mature enough to see the bottom part of a male singer on stage with clothes on. We all looked at each other, all us all-American teenagers, and said, that's really dumb. We said, don't knock the rock. We said, I'm never going to tell my kid what songs he can listen to. You remember that? You remember that? Where'd we go? Where'd we go? The police are arresting record store clerks because the perverts have the audacity to sell rap music. That's where we went, with telling our children what they can and can't listen to. This is in the land of the free and the home of the brave. I want to conclude by saying to all you unfortunate citizens who are strapped to your couches with your eyes clamped open and forced to watch Mr. Smith's program in its entirety, you have my sympathy, and I hope your inquisitors will soon be apprehended and brought to justice. To those citizens who are not strapped to their couches, I say, if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. If its taste is questionable to you, watch Roseanne instead. I have a piece of advice for Mr. Smith. in his endeavor to be a producer and director, keep your day job. I asked the committee, don't change the public access to controlled public access. Don't drop public access. Don't scramble public access. You'd be asking me to decide today that there will never be a show on Channel 14 that I may want to see.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe we've talked before. It's good to see the members of this committee, and I want to express my appreciation for the diligent and difficult job you have gone through in doing your work. I expressed to you in my first opportunity that I am a strong supporter of the community being able to speak through the cable system, and I do want to see that continued in some form. I think it's very important. Tonight I want to address a little different aspect, something that probably has not yet been addressed, and that's considering the leadership that this forum needs in order to be the best kind of access channel we can have. Years ago, I had a friend who was a little overweight, and people kidded him about being overweight, and he decided he was going to run a 50-yard dash faster than he had ever run before. But the problem was, in order to concentrate on the 50-yard dash, he tried to do it with his eyes closed. As he started drifting off from center and eventually ran into a pole and broke his leg, all of his friends, including myself, was trying to holler at him to stop. That's not a recommended thing to do, to run with your eyes closed. In some ways, I feel like the public access channel has been a ship without a helm. I believe it has struck the rocks. However, I feel very encouraged by the public outcry that possibly the ship can be righted and we can have better leadership than we've had. I realize volunteer boards.
Most of our committee does know who you are, but I think you forgot to
I'm Larry Rouse. I'm sorry. I'm Larry Rouse, one of the programmers on the public access channel. Thank you, Gil. I'm sorry. Forgot that. I want to address some things, my concerns with the current board, the Cable Advisory Board. I realize how volunteer boards operate. Volunteers, no pay, lots of complaints. You can identify with that. And so this is not a personal attack upon those members in the Cable Advisory Board, but I believe still much has gone wrong. There's 3 areas of failure I want to address. Number 1, I believe the board has had in its history a lack of regular meetings. According to the rules, at least the dealing with the Cable Advisory Board, the board ideally should be meeting once a month. Unfortunately, this year, the board has met once this year. Last year, there was a gap between April and September of last year with no meetings. Those who are programmers like myself realize the kind of chaos that can go on behind the scenes and how we need a committed leadership and at least the ability, even if we're wrong, to be able to come before the board and express those concerns. Secondly, I have, in my view, seen a reluctance to do the duties that the Cable Advisory Board has been given. I was there the night when Donnie Smith's video was to be reviewed. And the rules state that obscene material was to be banned, indecent material was to be regulated. Who was going to view the video to determine whether or not it was obscene or indecent? There was an hour discussion that went on before that video was even viewed of whether or not even to view it. And it's obviously the duty of the Cable Advisory Board to do that. Dave Grubman, the public access coordinator, indicated to me that before the Race and Reason show aired, that he knew a few months before that it was going to air, and he was wanting to get a meeting of the Cable Advisory Board, and at least that was just not done. At least from this perspective, it may have been a ducking of the duties. I don't know, but I'm concerned about that. Thirdly, I've seen an overall lack of enforcement of rules. In the rules, Article number 3, Section 2, it states that members of the board shall serve the board shall serve terms of 3 years except those filling out the term of resigned member. No person shall serve more than 3 full 3-year terms, excluding membership for a prior partial term. On the current setup of the board, we have 3 members, one appointed in 1975, one appointed in August of 81, and the other appointed in November of 82, that according to these rules shouldn't even be on the board. It seems like there's just been some neglect. I know there are other rules that are currently on the books that if they were enforced would be unworkable or at least would create chaos. My recommendation is this: we need a committed, knowledgeable group of people overseeing this channel. I think programmers, those of us who really care, need a larger representation on this board. Again, I know these people that are on the board are committed people in their own ways, and I'm not making a personal attack upon them. But I believe if we go to community access or we stay with public access, I would like to see people on the board who are knowledgeable, who know the problems that the programmers are having, and that we can be able to have the best kind of channel that we can have. I'm glad to see the outcry tonight. I'm glad to see those who have spoken, and I appreciate very much the work of this committee. Thank you.